Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Arsenal Pass Time of the Round. Today, we're here with Tee Thebeau. Tee's a pretty good friend of mine. I met him on the Rotational circuit. Ran into you, I think, a couple times, actually. You were quite a grinder back then. I think you have a pretty funny story, actually, in Rotational. So I remember you said something to me that has actually stuck with me all the way up until now. It was during that finals in Kansas. Once we finished, you said, always the bridesmaid. What did you mean by that?
Always second. I have a notorious record coming from Magic of like always being one short, and my friends used to even call me one short. Big record of getting like ninth at events, not making the cut by one, or getting second in the finals, or all kinds of good stuff that you don't want to happen like that. Like it's always great to put up a ninth, but
yeah, I mean, it could be worse. You could just serially lose on stream every single time you got on. That'd be pretty bad. But let's talk about, how did you get into Flesh and Blood? When was your entry point specifically, and then what actually drew you to the game initially?
So there was my local store in Missouri at the time was pretty much dying because of COVID. There was nobody playing for Magic. And so we started traveling to a store that was about an hour and a half away just to play like weekly events so that we could get back into playing the game. And one week while we were there, they put out a display of all the Flesh and Blood boxes. And I had heard a bunch of my friends talking about it from other parts of the state. And so me and one of my friends, Nick Inlow, that we were there with, Nick walks up and takes his prize packs for that FNM in Flesh and Blood. And I was like, well, if you're going to do it, I better do it. And so we started cracking a bunch of packs of Arcane, and then Monarch came out the week after for Unlimited. So we started getting a bunch of Monarch, and finally we were like, you know what? I think it's time to learn how to play these cards that we have a bunch of. And so we hopped on the good old Google and typed in Flesh and Blood, and this wacky podcast came up on YouTube called Arsenal Pass, and then we learned how to play the game.
Not from us, I hope.
Yeah,
no, that'd be
well,
poorly.
The competitive side, like getting into it more. We watched the Ira video that they had up, and then the store owner taught us how to play, and then we were looking for something competitive to do because we've always done that with Magic, and when it wasn't available, we wanted something else, and it was right before like RTN season started. So after we started getting the game down and getting more competitive in it, we realized there were events.
Yeah. And you traveled literally every weekend. You had a crazy schedule during Road to Nationals. I actually didn't know that you only had started playing in Monarch. That's pretty crazy. You mentioned Magic there, by the way. What was your history in Magic?
At the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, I left my full-time job to just play competitive Magic. And so I was playing on the Star City circuit and the Channel Fireball GP circuit for 4-ish years before that. Mm-hmm. And then once I started doing well and making money from traveling and justifying cost of living versus cost of traveling, and then being able to make enough money to do all of it, I decided to go full time with it and try to do content creation. And then we had this crazy shutdown.
Yeah.
So
that's so I would imagine coming from that, kind of getting the rug kind of got swept out from under you. You must be pretty excited with the future of Flesh and Blood, especially as we head into 2022.
Oh yeah, when they put out that poster, that was the $1 million year. We lost it. We lost our minds.
That's awesome. You, I remember when I met you in Kansas, you had mentioned you were starting a new job at SCG. So I know we've talked about this. I already know the answer, but you started that job. You're working there now. How is it, and what do you do?
I love it. Moved out to Roanoke from Missouri, so now I'm in Virginia, and I work for SCG as a pricing and purchasing representative. So whenever people come in to sell us cards or mail us cards, and at events, you can find me at the buy booth purchasing cards and pricing cards. So like my specific division that I have is promos. So pretty much any promo on the Star City website, I had a hand in.
That's sweet. Cool. That Road to National season, what made you maybe it's probably the answer is probably you just love the game, but you were really grinding back then. Because I remember seeing you at pretty much all of them. I went to a lot of them, but I don't think I went to nearly as many as you. You went like, how many did you end up going to in total?
I genuinely do not have a solid answer for that. I can't remember. It was probably like 9 or 10, somewhere up there.
Crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, every weekend that there was one available within, I think the furthest one we drove to was Tennessee, which was like an 8-hour drive. But there was one the day before that one in St. Louis, which was 3 hours of the way. So we drove 3 hours to St. Louis, did one, drove 5 hours to Tennessee, did one, drove back.
Crazy.
It's a big weekend. To be fair, I would have tried to do something similar. I had the opportunity. I think it was, I don't know about you, but I felt like super starved for paper competitive TCGs, like, events to play. And so when Rotational season rolled around, I was like chomping at the bit to just get out and play some events, and like even willing to travel. I actually traveled for the skirmish season in season 1 because I was that keen after like a year and a bit of no events to travel to get to something. So I'm sure you would have been the same. And how did you have like a core group that you were going with like every week? Was it a group of your local friends, or you're saying Nick and?
Yeah, so at the beginning, whenever we first started playing, it was me and Nick, and we learned how to play. And then we got another one of our friends that was playing Magic into it. His name's Michael. And so it was me, Nick, and Michael. And we would meet at Nick's house every Wednesday and play for like 2 hours and figure things out. And every week we would try to go home and consume content that would help us progress in the game, and then proxy something else up so that we could learn more decks. And then we started traveling to the first round of RTNs, to that one in Tennessee. The weekend after, we had convinced another one of our friends, Evan, to join in and learn. And so then it was the 4 of us traveling to events. And then by the time the 2 in Texas rolled around, we had convinced another one of our friends to join. So then we had a full car, and we were just traveling to a lot of events.
Making the most of it, yeah. I don't know if Brendan wants to ask any more about your history, but I have a bit of a hard-hitting question for you, T, and one I've been looking for the right person to ask this to that we've had on Time of the Round, and I feel like you might be that person. But now that we're kind of down the road of 6 months of competitive Flesh and Blood events in North America, and I know you've been to a few. I think you went to a calling as well in that time. What do you think of the level of play that you're seeing, and also specifically with the Magic players who have come across? Because you have a big experience in the Magic world in terms of grinding circuits, and now you're seeing these players come across like yourself. What do you think is happening to the competitive play space? Where do you think the levels are, and do you think these Magic players are having an impact?
For sure, definitely. So everyone who cared about like a competitive side of the game, that was as crazy as I am, doing as many events as they could and jamming their schedule full, has either swapped it to online Magic, which for me just doesn't do it, or has come over to Flesh and Blood and started traveling and doing events. Like at Nationals, there was another pro Magic friend of mine, Jacob, that top 8'd Nationals, and he came straight over from Magic. He won one of the Star City Invitationals back in the day, has his own token, and he came to Flesh and Blood because the paper game is balanced better, it plays better, the competitive scene was there and starting up, and everybody wanted to be in on the ground floor of what we feel is the next big competitive game.
Yeah. And do you think that those players, like Jacob, I'm guessing he wasn't playing for long before heading to Nationals, maybe around the same time as you, or into that level? And we of course saw Michael Hamilton, who played Magic in the past as well, and done similar, I think, in terms of playing on circuits, taking out the calling. So I guess a really short period of time for these players to turn around to some results, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, another one of my Magic friends, we've ran into each other from Star City circuits and GPs in the past. And yeah, it converts, but on a different level because of how punishing it is to make mistakes in Flesh and Blood. You see like the high skill transfer of people who were very, very good at Magic coming into Flesh and Blood and doing very, very well because of every mistake mattering infinitely more in Flesh and Blood.
Yeah. And there's a reason I asked this. I'm not just asking for. It's a bit of a leading question, I guess, and it's about the state of play, I think. And I was really interested because I got to, of course, go to the calling in Orlando, as Brendan knows, he was there with me, and an awesome experience, of course. But also, just the level of play was a lot higher than probably I expected, especially at top tables, and just a lot of players who had really picked up the game, and obviously they had these transferable skills. And it's just becoming a lot more competitive, I think, and that's awesome to see. And yeah, I think I wanted someone like yourself, T, who's witnessed that firsthand, who knows what it's like for being someone like a Magic player coming across and transferring those skills and starting to see results in this game. And it's getting super competitive. I think it's just points forward to the competition that we're going to have next year as we get into the calling season and the ProQuest season, which I think we're about to talk about as well. And then into the first Pro Tour, it's going to be heated competition. And some of the areas that have had a bit of a head start, I think, in parts of the world, like myself and the community here in Australia, we have to watch our backs, I think, because there's some pretty strong players coming up through North America now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Dude, I love how Hayden dunks on his own people. He's the only one that can do it because they'll get super pissed if we say anything. But Hayden just dunking on the New Zealand. No, I'm kidding.
It's not dunk. It's just a time to up the game. I think there's like some sentiments about areas of the world that have some of the best players in it, and I think there's a bit of a grey area now. There's some fantastic players who just put up some results through this calling season. I mean, our very own Dante, 2 callings and a nationals top 8, nothing to scoff at, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy that you'd be willing to say that your own people, the Australian players, just kind of suck. No, I'm kidding.
Definitely would never say that. Some fantastic players over here, by the way. And they're going to show. They're going to show it at Worlds and Pro Tours, so don't worry about that.
Hayden, I'm going to ask you then. So we won't stay on this topic too long, but let's just put Hayden on the hot seat. So Worlds is coming up in 2022. We've probably answered this question, I think, 3 times in this past year. But what nationality will the world champion be? Where will they be from?
Yeah, we've asked a lot of people this question.
USA.
Yeah, T's going to say USA. I'm getting more confident in saying that I think it will be a North American player or a player from Asia, I think. That's probably what I'd say.
Yeah.
Just the results. Watching that final match, and I think it was the Hong Kong Championship, was an awesome game to watch. And you saw a player who was in a really bad spot, like navigate a game. I don't know if anyone's watched that out there, but if you haven't, go check it out. It's a great game. And just from my experiences spending, that event in the US as well, in Orlando, just the level of play. I think there's more players there. Obviously, they have opportunities because, and we'll talk about it soon, the amount of ProQuest, the amount of callings, the amount of PTIs that they can get on is probably significantly larger than other parts of the world right now, even Europe, where you might see some players come. But I think Worlds might come a bit too soon for European players, and I think it might just be at the right time for either a player from the US, a player from Canada, or even a player from somewhere like a Hong Kong. There you go. I'll say
I like it.
Hey.
I like it.
I'll be for the Australians who disagree with me. I'll be at Nationals. Come beat me down, and that's fine. You can take it out of me there.
That's exciting. Well, yeah, I'm really excited to see the New Zealand and Australian national champions. So T, I've also written down your vote as well, USA. And I don't answer these questions because I'm the people.
Political mastermind.
The people, political mastermind. No, I'd probably gamble. If I had to gamble, if I could choose North America, that'd be a bit easier. But I also think I'm in line with Hayden, where like North America and Asia are like my top regions. But Asia is interesting because they're a bit, like, they're obviously very skilled, but they're a bit siloed, and we don't get to actually experience that player base very much, other than what was the online skirmish season. And that's where it's like, oh yeah, so we kind of realize they're a lot better than we would have expected, right? Not that we expected them to be bad, but we just had no exposure, and then so it's definitely something to watch out for.
You also get presumably 1 to 2 Pro Tours before then, and a handful of callings that those players can travel to. So we'll get to see, and they'll get the experience. And just based on other card games in the past, there is usually contingents out of the Asia region that are just like, they either become like fanatical about the game, or they just find a way to devote so much time and energy and just have natural skill as well. So yeah, it'll be good to see.
All right, so we had some news. ProQuest are now armories. No, I'm kidding. So the ProQuest scene is in 2022 is going to change a bit. So it used to be almost universally. There are some exceptions. Obviously, there's one in Australia, and there was the SCG Con where ProQuest did not accompany a calling, but previously they were on the day twos of the calling, and they were mostly meant for people who did not day two, and they had another chance to go for a Pro Tour invite. But moving into 2022, that is going to change drastically. We have, I guess, the ProQuest circuit, and there is a plethora of ProQuest going on. They're going to be kind of, I mean, they seem like they're basically the most, like, the thing I can compare them to the most is Road to Nationals, right? Like, it seems very similar to that. Do you agree, T?
Yeah, on a Fab standpoint, it's like a Road to Nationals. In a Magic standpoint, this would be like your PPTQs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
what do you guys think about the change?
I kind of want to actually, I wanted to ask because you just like while it's fresh on the mind, just off T's tongue there, the comparison between like a Magic PPTQ system, because one of the big things is that these don't award prizes towards travel to these Pro Tours, and a lot of people said, and including myself, I was like, there's a lot of these happening, but realistically, what percentage of players who win these events are going to actually find themselves in a position to go, or maybe be wanting to go without that, I guess, that financial incentive or that airfare incentive like you've had in other games. I know Yu-Gi-Oh's done it in the past, Magic's done it in the past, so it's a bit of a change, right? Like, I just wanted to get that in before you asked that question, Brendan, because it is not only are we seeing a change from the current system with callings and ProQuests on Sundays, but we're also seeing, I guess, a change to maybe how this is done in other parts of the TCG world.
Yeah, can you explain that again? I think I understood, but you were saying, so in Magic, you would win like some sort of compensation that you could apply towards going towards the Pro Tour. Was that it?
So the Magic competitive structure for a long time was a PPTQ, which was like a smaller event that gave you an invite to a regional PTQ. And the regional PTQ was top X number of players qualify. I think it was top 2 or top 4. And then the winner of those events would also get like a plane ticket and 500 cash. So you have your trip paid for that Pro Tour. So the structure is a little different here with the ProQuests in Flesh and Blood, but depending on what that first place gold cold ends up being, that could just be everything in itself.
Yeah, it's real interesting, actually, the wording on that, because it says weapons. So it either tells us that I'm going off, by the way. I'm going. It's a bit of a detraction.
Here comes the Brendan jump.
We can always see that now. You can understand why I struggled as a child. But it did say weapons, so like we either definitely get legendary weapons in Everfest, or we are going to depart from printing things like Welcome to Rathe, Arcane Rising, and all this stuff in terms of the cold golds for these ProQuests, which seems ideal, right? Because the pricing is
for you, it does.
Very, very good. Well, I mean, the pricing is, for the amount that there's going to be in the like specifically in like a region like the United States, it does seem like a pretty good prize.
Yeah, I mean, like here in Roanoke, where there's 2, imagine $12,000 of prizes given out in one city for events that will have 40 people tops.
Yeah, that would make that $12,000 a like eventually like a $2,000
that's
prize.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, the amount of events would, if it carries on the same kind of printing cycle, right? You effectively, I mean, the amount in the wild of these gold foils just exponentially goes up, right? So that's kind of a bit scary, I think, in some ways, and also the financial, I guess, implications of like sell it to go, fund your plane ticket, that might diminish. With the amount that are happening, so it'd be interesting to see what they do. My gut feel is that we see the current crop of gold foils probably retired, in terms of, or it'd be slightly different where you say like maybe it doesn't end up being legendaries. So we'll see what happens, or weapons, or I think something changes.
I think that's like my biggest fear is that these gold colds are just going to be. There's going to be a feel bad where you open a gold cold and it's an Iris of Reality, and you're like, I guess I lose.
Yeah, I mean, I actually look forward to. I would really like to get like a gold cold of like a like a Dawn Blade or something. But yeah, it's an interesting concept, and I honestly have no idea where it's going to go. But
The other thing we've been bouncing around here locally is what if it's the majestic weapons from
I agree.
From Aria, and then it's like, oh no, Duskblade.
I don't think that they would have
they
that
don't print
one.
that one surely, but
they would somehow find a way to not have that one in the rotation.
I actually think that's a good shout, and that's kind of where my head is at. Is that we could see them become majestic equipment and weapons. So majestic equipment from Crucible, Everfest, weapons from Everfest and Tales of Aria. What if it ends up being? I wouldn't be surprised to see that. It feels like it's going to be something different. You look at Rotationals having the rainbow foil full art tunics. That's a departure from where they've been in the past. I'd be interested to see what happens though. I think something needs to change though, as you potentially devalue these, and it looks like, just even for the very first Pro Tour, we're going to have in excess of 200 ProQuests. So it's like, it's not actually don't quote me. I'm just going based off how many I know so far in the US. And
it's definitely a lot. It's definitely a lot though, so it's fine. It's interesting how, if you want to play competitive Flesh and Blood, you will definitely be satiated in 2022, where in 2021, we went from like skirmish, everybody's trying to spike skirmishes and then spike these RTNs. And I mean, it's just going to be so different as we move forward. So Ban Unrestricted, that happened last week. We got our big announcement, which was no announcement. T, what is your opinion on no bannings in the Classic Constructed or Blitz format?
I think it's perfect. And I'm going to get attacked for that, but I think
you're in company.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is boring. Come on, T.
I think that no changes yet is perfect. We've got the next announcement coming on February 2nd, 2 days before Everfest. Realistically, I don't think that there should be anything there either. It seems incredibly unfair to ban something now and then completely change the 3 nationals that got postponed: Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore, I think.
Yep.
To just take all 3 of those nationals and throw them for a loop seems unfair, like playing a different game. But we still have that chance on February 2nd that I think if we reach enough outcry at that point, something will probably get banned. In my mind, it'd be something like Plunder Run, because that's the card I hear people complain about the most. But
I think that's what the sensible people complain about. I hear a lot of other complaints. Like, if you want to get attacked, you should just say something like this. Like, I think the format is actually healthy.
I think the format's perfect. The format's perfect. Game perfectly fine. Yep.
That'll get you attacked. But that is genuinely what I think. Like, I always think that Briar's a good deck, but it's nothing like Chain was. And I think that any kind of errata would just be terrible. But I agree with you. Yep, Plunder Run is the one that's on the chopping block in terms of like the health of the game in general. A lot of decks just seem to include that card as of recent. Seems, but yeah, we'll see in Everfest. There's so much that could come with that. Hayden, what is your opinion on the Ban Unrestricted?
I got a few.
I need you to have something contrary.
Yeah, I want to be the contrarian of the group. Someone's got to be. I mean, come on, we got to find.
I
told you, Brendan, the screening process for guests on Time in the Run now is: do they disagree with us? We've got to. Everyone's going to think that we just find like-minded people. Yeah, no. One thing you did forget about T though is February 2nd. It gives them the opportunity to ban something before it gets released in Everfest. So.
Yep.
I gotta have a shot.
I heard that's a new thing that they're trying to do every set with R&D. It's just ban something right out of the gate.
No,
okay, we're gonna get like the spoilers at the end of January, and they'll be like, "Oh, look at this nice new legendary weapon."
I kid. I think we look pretty good. I think they've learned their lessons from that. I hope they have, and from experience with LSS so far, I'm sure they have. But my view, the one thing I'm surprised about is that we didn't get so last time Seeds was banned and then Unhallowed Rites was placed on the watch list. There was nothing said about that watch list in this banned and restricted announcement, unless I missed it, but I read it 3 times, so I don't think I did. And Plunder Run was not played. So I was expecting, my prediction was no bans except for possibly Duskblade and Blitz, which I would have been fine with. Having played some Blitz recently, I actually think that would probably be good for the health format, but it's also a casual format, and banning cards is kind of feel bad, so I think that's also fine. It doesn't detract from still playing that format, I think, for the core base of players that are going to play it, especially with skirmish season. But the no watch list sort of piece, and maybe not putting something like a Plunder Run on the watch list, says to me that LSS are pretty happy with the current, I guess, state of the balance of where the format could be, and they clearly see that there's probably some decks out there or some strategies out there that are being underutilized right now. I don't know, like old time maybe. So it's gonna be interesting to see. But yeah, the fact no watch list was interesting to me.
I think
decks
that
are not being utilized like old time, maybe.
Oh, maybe. I think the reason for no watch list could alternatively be that they want to see the results from the last 3 nationals that are outstanding to like confirm Plunder Run is the problem in like engineering those Briar decks.
Take the season in its entirety as well.
Yeah, take the season in its entirety, and like taking out Plunder Run hurts other strategies too.
Yep. It does.
So
yeah, poor Katsu just can't catch a break.
Honestly, I was waiting for them to unban seeds. Like I really thought that was coming, but not this time. Surely on the second. So we have a little set called Welcome to Rathe rotating out. Hayden and I are infamously Welcome to Rathe boomers. I guess you are a Monarch millennial. T. What is your thoughts of Welcome to Rathe exiting like print? So this is real. Me and Hayden stumbled upon a little conundrum today while we were playing a Welcome to Rathe constructed video for the channel, which will be out soon. They said at one point, they were like, hey, we're going to stop printing Drone of Brutality in Unlimited, right? And then they're going to release that. I only ever got boxes of Welcome to Rathe Unlimited with Drone of Brutality. And like when they made that announcement, did they have like the idea of actually printing Welcome to Rathe longer than they did? Because it seems like it was like either short-lived or not lived at all. I'm just like kind of confused because like, yeah, we're going to take it out of Unlimited. But then all the boxes that we got here in Texas were with Drone of Brutality. And it seems like if they were going to take the set out of print anyway, why would they take Drone of Brutality? It's so weird. I'm so confused.
Yeah. So when they make these announcements, they still have like one full print run hitting distributors. So maybe it'll be in that last print run, but that would be really strange for them to like swap over to a new distributor, go to the Belgium print, and then also cut cards halfway through or it's starting another print and then stop production on that set completely. That does seem weird. So that seems like something that they probably decided against or went a different way with.
Just gonna put the tinfoil hat on. So
here we go.
Maybe they weren't planning to stop printing Welcome to Rathe, and it was planning to keep it going longer. But I guess with the end, like Crucible rotating out, and then Arcane Rising was what was surprising. And of course, we kind of expected Welcome to Rathe after that. Like Arcane Rising, Welcome to Rathe. I heard from a little birdie that is very close to this game. I won't name the birdie, but a long time ago, they told me the idea of Unlimited was that it would always be on shelves. And I was like, that's interesting if you have like 20 sets, but okay, sounds good. And now we see core sets and like, you know, when Arcane Rising went out, it was like, yeah, everybody kind of hates that limited format anyway, whatever, right? And then Welcome to Rathe goes out. It's like one of the most loved sets. I mean, probably the most loved set ever created. It's an interesting move. What do you guys think about like the rotation out of?
I think one thing, Brendan, is that you're speaking from a very Brendan side of things here, just in terms of like you've got the tinfoil hat, but also as a lover of Welcome to Rathe, right? I do have one thing to say on the print piece. I think they were just covering their bases, to be honest. They could very well have been because okay, say they don't make that announcement, and they also aren't ready to announce that sets are going to go out of print, and then people go, "Oh, are we going to get drones still in these packs?" And I still have to open drone, and it just maybe raises questions they don't want to have to deal with. And then it also allows them to, if they do decide to actually extend their print run, it gives them the option to do it and just leave drone out, right? So I think that might have just been covering their bases, to be honest, just in terms of that announcement. But I think it's pretty hard to, whether they had always intended for, as you say, Unlimited to be on shelf, or for it to be an extended time period, but wasn't obviously first edition. Trying to run a business that's running in a card game that's going to release minimum 2 sets a year on that model is so tough with like scale of production and cost of production. And especially in an ever increasing environment of like raw materials costs, where manufacturing and raw materials is just going up. it's really tough. So maybe that decision was made before some recalculations of costs and things like that, and just realizing, how much this game might cost to make, and people who have money invested in this game from the actual business side of it, it just might not have been viable as it might have been maybe 6 to 9 months ago. And I have that personal experience from working in a business that has experienced very high cost increases, because across the world this is happening with COVID and a lot of other impacts of raw material costs. So I'm not surprised if they had that decision originally and then maybe had to course correct a little bit to fit the model they want moving forward.
It makes sense, right? And I think that if you had said this a year ago, we would have made a lot of money, because if you think about it, the idea that Welcome to Rathe would always be in print doesn't make any freaking sense at all. Like, that seems logistically impossible at this release schedule. So you're right. So
what if we shift towards a real rotation, like a standard format?
That would be surprising, right? That would be very surprising, because I know one of the core ethoses is non-rotating format, but it could change, right?
Yeah. Like if we keep getting reprints in these core sets, like Tunic and Skullcap, to keep game say staples in the format and then rotate out older formats instead of banning cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're half the way there. Possible. You're half the way there. It's really hard to run a non-rotating format without printing old sets that have staples, because it's not even the Majestic and legendary staples. And I'm not sure how long you played Magic for, T, but I'm sure if you played long enough, you remember this. But it was a set called Ravnica, and the set was like reasonably printed, but Magic had a pretty strong growth sort of in the year preceding that set. And there was a card called Remand, which was in a lot of decks. And that was uncommon, so equivalent of being a rare in Flesh and Blood. So, think about your, I don't know, Erin's Prayers, or, these rare level cards. It was a $15 card at one point in terms of when it was in standard, when it was in like the current, like not the rotational format. So I know T's looking at the price right now or something probably.
I didn't play when original Ravnica came out. Yeah, so that released in 2005. I was the ripe old age of 5 years old.
Okay, there you go.
But I did play when Return to Ravnica came out, and I do remember Remand being $15-$20.
Yeah, and it was in standard, and that's just, I'm not saying that this is what Magic did and this is what Flesh and Blood need to do, but what I'm saying is this is an example of what happens when you have a demand on sets, and then you bring in, a phasing out of product. There's potential for things like this to happen where you don't have the product available. Especially, imagine if, we come out the other side of this ProQuest season, and the first set of 2021 post-Everfest, so the first foundational set, is just like a huge success. All these new players coming into the game looking for Welcome to Rathe product or Arcane Rising product. What does that do to the game? And I think we're getting so cynical today. I'm sorry.
No.
It's such an interesting point.
Because does it even make sense?
I think that at that point you take on the Yu-Gi-Oh model.
Yeah. I was about to ask. What is
the Yu-Gi-Oh model? Yeah.
So Yu-Gi-Oh is non-rotational. Everything's legal. They just edit a ban list of every card. And so obviously sets go out of print, because there's sets in Yu-Gi-Oh that came out in early 2000s and before that still have cards that see play. So they just reprint things. Mm-hmm. And Yu-Gi-Oh pays really good, Konami pays really good attention to what's seeing play, and they do a reprint tin every year now that focuses on all the heavy hitting cards from the year before. So you end up with your $100 Command and Conquers in a tin at $5 now, which isn't great for the collector side of things, but it helps the player side of things a lot.
Yeah. There's some collectors watching us right now who just start sweating.
Are they watching our channel though, Brendan? I don't know. We are.
I'm a big market player out here.
Well, we're gonna be renaming after today, I'll tell you what. But do you know what? That's actually super interesting, is that whether you're a player, whether you're a collector, whether you are a casual whether you're a semi-competitive player, whether you're a competitive-minded player, this is going to impact you. Like the decisions that LSS make in the next 6 months in terms of reprints, in terms of what they do with set releases. There's the discussion about first versus unlimited, and I actually think that kind of discussion pales in comparison to what could happen in terms of how they decide to look at the reprint side of it, because it's going to dictate access to cards. It's going to dictate how many players can get into local armories with the cards they want, even into the ProQuest season, things like this. So I'm glad we jumped onto this conversation. It's an interesting one, actually.
We're coming right up on the 3-year curse, so Where
What's
like
that? What's that? What's a 3-year curse?
new card games that like explode in popularity at the beginning die in their third and the end of their third year. Flesh and Blood came out 2018?
2019.
2019. Okay, 2019.
Yeah.
So 2022, third year.
Okay.
It's true. We'll see. I mean, there's card games obviously that have succeeded and continued through, or they've taken maybe their growth has kind of plateaued a little bit. But I do think if you look at some of those card games, LSS I think have probably learned from some of those, and you can tell that in the way they've tried to scale and tried to be a little bit more careful about their scaling. It's the old, you start a business and you go and spend your cash flow on expenses and raise your expense level. I don't think LSS have maybe done that as much as some other card games. Hopefully, seems like
I am very, very happy with how Flesh and Blood has turned out. Even just like the short, less than a year that I've been playing it, watching the decisions they make and the actions they take, it makes some more casual players upset whenever they have to do things like early bannings, but it shows that they care about the healthiness of the game and the format, and they want to make it a playable game that can sustain itself. And I'm a big fan of how they're doing things.
Yeah, we can have viewers on both sides, right? I know we do, because I've spoken to a lot of our listeners and viewers who are on both sides of something like a Dustblade ban or a Seeds of Agony ban or the current state of Briar, things like that. But there's like, LSS have like a responsibility to strike a balance for the long-term growth of the game, and some things may not feel right in the now, and they may not be right in the now, right? Like they're not going to get everything perfect, but I think to your point, T, like they're paying a lot of attention to try and learn from past mistakes of themselves, but also those who've walked before them as well. So I feel pretty good about it. I think I feel very similar to you.
I feel good about where we are as a game right now, and very good about it going forward.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't even think that the reality, like in my mind, is even a possibility of Flesh and Blood like not being the next game, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so cemented in terms of like its dominance for the future in my mind. But I don't know. I want to ask you, T, as kind of a parting question here, what is the best deck in the Classic Constructed format and why?
In Classic Constructed, the best deck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm between the two Guardians, the two adult Guardians. But I'm gonna put Oldhim on top. I think Oldhim has the best game right now for being able to steadily control the game state and prevent damage from especially heavy hitters like Briar and Chain. And Michael's list and victory kind of solidified that in my mind.
That's a good shout. Do you know what? When I first looked at Michael's list after the calling, because we played in the calling, I thought, and I knew he told me you hadn't been playing that long, like the list was kind of put together more recently. I looked at it and was like, oh, I don't know about this list. And then I played it and was like, oh, actually, yeah, okay. Michael knows what's up. Michael knows what's up.
It's the weird things that people don't experiment with, because they're like, why would you play Art of War in Oldhim? But then you play it and you're like, oh, this card has 4 modes, huh? And then all of a sudden the card gets a lot better.
Yeah. Okay, good to know. There's T's shout. Do you know what, Brendan, I was thinking before when you asked me about, we were talking about the Classic Constructor format, and I said about the old time. It's not really like a side or anything. I'm being really careful at the moment about what I say about the Classic Constructor format, not because I have Nationals coming up, but because I have Nationals coming up and people thinking that I'm saying things for the purposes of, I don't know, not wholesome reasons. I genuinely right now am unsure about what the best deck is right now. I don't know what I'm going to play for Nationals, and I think the format is pretty open, although it has some restrictions on the ways that you can build and prepare for an event. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
So you're just not going to tell everybody you're playing Kano?
Damn it.
The Kano tech.
Tech.
Oh man, I'm so excited for whatever he's getting in Everfest. It's man.
Kano's like 1 card away from being playable.
Dude, he is. The thing is, like, he is playable. He's 1 card away from being busted.
That's what
that might be the issue. Yeah.
Man, I hope and I pray. All right. Well, T, we appreciate you coming on. It was great talking to you. As we head out, do you have anything that you want to plug? Your Twitter, your upcoming birthday, literally whatever you want.
Birthday, March 1st. Feel free to mail me No, I'm just kidding. Follow me on Twitter at TCG Gaming, TEECG Gaming. And then on my Twitter, there's a link to my YouTube channel. I don't post a whole lot on there, but when I do, I try to make it good content. So drop me a follow on both of those platforms.
Sweet. Well, again, appreciate you coming on. I look forward to seeing you in the ProQuest season as well as whatever 22 is going to bring. And yeah. Oh.
Active player?
Yeah, that's it. Active player. Dude, I just blanked. Active player turn.
Here we go.
All right, that's it. We'll see you guys next time.
See you later.
See ya.